Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about, some interesting economic data just released. Turns out, Commerce Department says the economy was actually a lot hotter than previously thought. Things were much better in the quarter prior. In fact, been upgraded to a gross domestic product increase of 5.2% annualized rate by the Commerce Department. And what they're saying, I know this is the period between July and September. They're saying, wow, that's a booming economy. And look, you know, the message machine on the right is everything's doom and gloom, everything's horrible, the economy's in the tank, because they want us to believe things are really bad. Now, understand, problems, absolutely. But this want and wish and hope and praying for recession and chaos that they're attempting to will onto us so far hasn't happened. And look, at some point, if they do enough, maybe we get there. But the thing that gets me is, I got to tell you, I'm in awe of the right-wing message machine. I'm in awe of their message discipline. I'm in awe of the fact that when they grab onto something, they stick to it. For instance, Virginia Fox, the congresswoman and the head of one of the chairs in the House, she said at a hearing about overtime pay, there's just a lot of people in this country that don't want to work and want somebody else to take care of them. That's not what this country is all about. Now, this hearing was literally about people working more than 40 hours a week. Never miss an opportunity to spew your propaganda, and they don't. This is the thing that I'm always amazed at. Because when they get onto something, they never let go. Facts be damned, reality be damned. Anybody, you know, with any different be damned. No. And they stick to it. They stick to the message, no matter what. And they're good at it. Look, focus group tested, think tank approved. They come out with their narrative and they stick to it. Now remember, these folks, the Virginia Foxes of the world, they don't have policy fixes. They don't have, you know, any policy ideas. It's all about destroy and divide and conquer. That's what it's really about. And of course, repetition. Because how many times have we heard nobody wants to work anymore? And yet there are people going to work every day, which is weird, since nobody wants to work. You have to give them credit, I guess, on a certain level. They create their narrative. They stick to it. And speaking of which, this is one of those things that caught my attention today. Judd Legum, who does an incredible Substack page. I'm a huge fan. We used to have him on the show all the time back when he was with Think Progress. He had a piece today on this woman who went to a Texas board meeting. And I remember the story. This woman, this 20-year-old, her name's Alana Burkhart, I think. She testified in front of this school board meeting out of nowhere. Nobody knew who she was. She just showed up and claimed that when she was an 11-year-old girl, she bought a book from the Scholastic Book Fair. You know, because in fact, my wife used to run the Scholastic Book Fair in our local school or help run it. And you know, I'm a big fan of the whole program and ensuring kids get books and all that. But she claims when she was 11 that she read one of these Scholastic books. And because of that, she now suffers from a debilitating porn addiction. Oh, no. Evidently, there was a kiss in the book. There was a kiss, a single kiss depicted in this Scholastic book. She got banned, by the way. I mean, that was the point. But stuck to the narrative. 20-year-old woman, horrible porn addiction because she was 11, read this book. And nobody bothered to ask, explain. Turns out, and this is where Judd Legum did a really great job of piecing this together. Turns out her appearance at this place was promoted by a group called Sky Tree Book Fairs. You know where this is going, I'm sure you do. They are a newly formed group. They market themselves as, quote, an alternative to the sexually explicit content distributed in scholastic book fairs. So evidently you're supposed to believe, and this is the narrative, you're supposed to believe the Scholastic Book Fair is all porn and all graphic and all bad. And as my wife would be the first to tell you, no, in fact, she's muttering that to herself right now. But this Sky Tree Book Fairs put this woman out, promoted. Oh, did I mention she works for them? Did I mention the fact that she's one of their employees? Now remember, they present themselves as this independent nonprofit, only caring about the kids. And you find out, according to Judd Legum's reporting, that they were kind of slapdash put together in a really kind of a hurry way as an offshoot to something called Brave Books, which publishes, and you know where this is coming from, which publishes children's books by crazy right-wing pundits. Yeah, the Prager folks, this is their part of their shtick, and I'm not 100% sure Prager's in it, but the Prager types, this is it. The president of Sky Tree Book Fairs, recently an executive assistant at Brave Books. Gee, are we shocked? And the answer is no. And this is one of these moments where you go, understand how important the right-wing message machine is. Understand how pervasive their reach into our lives is. Even if you don't watch the F channel, even if you don't watch all of the crazy cable news outside of that, you're still getting these messages. Because you know what? A lot of your local news organizations reported on this story. These people are so well organized because they're well funded, really well funded. And what gets me is you have this woman, this 20-year-old, who had no problem going before a school board and admitting to a porn addiction, which I don't know if she has or if she doesn't. But it's curious that she works for the company that would benefit from the demise of Scholastic Book Fairs. Now, understand, I would bet the people who were ultimately behind this want book fairs completely done away with altogether, especially if they can't control all of the content in those kids' eyes. But this, to me, again, another one of those moments where, surprise, surprise, they are creating this world of chaos and outrage. Because you know that people saw this woman who looked very convincing and said, oh, we can't have that with our children. Hey, they have Scholastic Book Fairs at my kid's school. We have to do something. There's porn in the Scholastic Book Fairs. And the reality is there's not. But the facts be damned. It's the narrative that's important. It's what you believe other than what they can prove. And I guess the question is are you surprised? And the answer is no. You shouldn't be surprised because this is the kind of stuff that the right does masterfully. This is the kind of stuff that corporatists do masterfully. This is the divide and conquer to not only destroy this Scholastic Book Fair group, which, again, they're the big players on the block. But this is about destroying public education as a whole. This is about getting people angry at public education. How dare you let those Scholastic Book Fairs in your school? How dare you promote reading? I don't want my children reading. I mean, I fear this is where we end up. Now you could go, Rick, you're just being a bit hyperbolic. This is an isolated incident. I'm not so sure. because I look at these maniac moms for misery groups, these moms for liberty groups. There's a lot of people getting paid somewhere. There's a lot of people making money off of this. And there's a lot of billionaire money being funneled into these AstroTurf groups. There's a lot of money into this stuff because what the billionaires understand is as long as we're continuing to fight over things, we're not fighting for good things. We're fighting over nonsense while they're robbing us blind. They understand. And I go back to something my grandfather said. And I'm not sure he really understood exactly how important that statement was. But he said, look, if a rich guy's going to take a buck out of his pocket to tell you you don't need something, you better spend two to get it. Because they understand return on investment. They didn't get to be rich by being stupid with their money. And when a Jeffrey Yaz spends millions of dollars to go after school boards and public education, on the back end, there's a massive payoff. Power, control, ultimately our tax dollars. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Are you surprised by the whole dog and pony show, by the bread and circus? And if you are, we should talk. Right back after this.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
It's remarkable to me. I read a book and someone kissed in the book and now I have a porn addiction. I got to tell you, I don't know. I don't know if I should say this. As a young kid, we found other people's actual porn and don't have an addiction. So I gotta wonder. Gotta wonder. Let's go to the phones. Got Steve on line 1 from Chicago. Steve, how are you, man?
I'm fine, and you took the words right out of my mouth because I don't know what this woman's age is. I don't know.
20.
But okay, 20. Okay, that makes my point very well. Because if this woman were in her mid-50s or older, I'd say, okay, there's a air of plausibility, even though I think it's absurd. Because let's say you were coming of age in the 70s, the 80s, whatnot. Okay, if you were a young person, actual porn, was pretty hard to get a hold of. But for someone her age, if she's addicted to porn, it's because of actual porn. Because if you're that age, that means that you can stream it day or night on 6 different devices. So this idea that, oh, wow, I read something, that's what got me hooked on porn, that was available in some school fair, that managed to get by everybody else in terms of, being pornography and nobody else noticing it. It was that. It wasn't the plethora of everything that's available online for young people that might have gotten her there. But obviously, none of this is true. This is just, somebody, a paid actor. And, the old saying goes, you have the story and then people buy into it. And even if somebody calls you out, nobody pays attention to the retraction. And though, this woman would be called out, a lot of people will just never hear about it and just buy into this and then repeat it at cocktail parties and at the bar and at the water cooler as if it's true. And that's exactly what happens in society. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember, in the wake of the invasion of Kuwait and the testimony that was offered up to the international community about children being
bayoneted
and snatched out of incubators, and so the Iraqis could take the equipment and repatriate it to Iraq. Well, turns out that it was a government official's daughter, not somebody who was working in the healthcare industry, not a nurse or a doctor.
No, she was a candy striper.
Testimony.
She was a candy striper.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the cover. She was a teenage girl who was a candy striper. Turns out she was nowhere near Kuwait during that time.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, you get people, and the fact is that back then you actually had to do some work to try and uncover who people are. I mean, today, if there's somebody in the Western world who doesn't have a social media profile or doesn't, exist in that realm, I mean, that's rare. So if you're 20 years old and you claim X, Y, Z, yes, somebody can uncover it pretty quickly, as you've managed to do, and others. So, yeah, I mean, again, people are willing to just buy into whatever their media outlet tells them is true because that they actually have faith in it. If you're an avid Fox viewer, you believe to your core that Fox is actual news. Even in the evening, the craziness that is the evening nonsense on Fox, that somehow is akin to what you see on ABC in terms of the nightly news. And the reality is that these people know that a lot of their viewership comes from individuals who don't access other information. They don't seek out multiple sources. They don't do any fact checking. So you can tell them anything you want, and a percentage of them will just go with it, and they will vote that way because of it. They'll regurgitate it to their friends. And I mean, that's just the reality of the world in which we live. We live in these echo chambers, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of us on the left who live in our share of echo chambers as well, who regurgitate some nonsense. But it's nothing akin to what you see on the right. And unfortunately, we've got to get people to listen. And I'm glad that you have people such as Hunter Biden and others who are saying, you know what? Okay, I'm going to call their bluff. This nonsense that they're advocating, we all know it's nonsense. We all know it's BS. But a significant number of the voting populace believes it. Okay, fine. Let's have the damn hearings. Let's talk about what you're claiming, and let's see the evidence.
Yep.
And let's let the American people see it. Wait, no, okay, well, we want to do that? Well, no, actually, we don't really want to do it in public. Oh, I wonder why.
Good stuff, Steve. Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Take care.
I got an email from Barbara who says, I read Lady Chatterley's Lover in high school. I'm not addicted to porn. Again, but Lady Chatterley's Lover was written in 1928. Again, this is on the ban list, though. Understand, they want to ban that, too. So maybe you should read it twice. There you go. Let's go to Alice on line 2. I'm sure Alice has got something on the Scholastic book front. Alice, how are you?
I am annoyed. The woman is a liar. When I graduated from high school in 1978, and I agree with Carol, we had the Scholastic books, and I bought them. I still have them. There wasn't any porn, and I started buying books when I was 8 years old. And my mother, for being a diehard Baptist, and my uncle who brainwashed her, who was a frickin' Billy Graham convert, she never monitored my books. And so let me tell you what, I am about sick and tired and fed up with these right-wingers that we got to read what they say, raise our kids their way. Our kids can only read what they want to read. And, we just have to live our whole life. And honest to God, I wish one of these plagues from Egypt would come down and wipe out the whole mess of them. Because they're about on my last nerve.
Okay, Alice, I think we've gone too far here. I appreciate
Seriously. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Look, the reality is you know what this was about. This was about, trying to, one, push the narrative that there are all these banned books and get people all lathered up and angry. And here's the great thing. The majority of people look at their librarians, look at their school librarians in a very positive light. Even with all of the attacks by the right-wing money machine, even with all of these made-up narratives, people are still looking to their school librarians as someone with a very positive eye. That's a good thing. But understand, these attacks, they're not going to stop. These people will not stop because they're, like I said, well-funded. There's a lot in this for them. Outside of the power and control, it's a cash motive. So, I don't expect it to stop anytime soon. But yeah, Lady Chatterley's. I didn't read it, but I think every girl I knew in high school did, and I'm not going to say what I'm thinking. No, I wish they had a porn addiction back then, but no such thing. Hey, Elon Musk back in the news. You may have seen that he's been pushing the Pizzagate thing again. Wildly debunked, in fact, in every way, shape, and form debunked. But hey, again, it's that narrative, sticking to the message. We believe. Evidently, he's been pushing it. So in response to people going, you're pushing debunked conspiracies, Elon, there are a number of businesses, the Washington Post being one of them, who are saying, well, we're going to put a pause on our advertising on X, or what formerly known as Twitter. And I'm in this spot where I go, I got to tell you, I am so tired of these companies going, we're going to pause our advertising on this. No, you just leave. It's like when Twitter said, the blue check mark, you're going to have to pay for it. We believe in free speech, but you're going to have to pay for the blue check mark. And, we had one, for years as part of the process that you had to go through to get the check mark. And then to keep it, you had to adhere to a certain set of guidelines and values and all this stuff. And we did that. As soon as Musk came in, did away with that. And I said, I am never paying for this. And our impressions went from, something like, 60 million a year down to, I think like a million and a half. And I said, look, I'm never going back. I am never going to give Elon Musk, I'm never going to give a billionaire money. I'm just not going to do it. And these corporations who are trying to be brave, they're trying to pretend like they're standing up to them. They do this big announcement, hey, we're going to put a pause on until next week. And it's just ridiculous. Now, Elon Musk was asked about these businesses doing this. And of course, Musk being Musk and the attitude that he thinks people want to hear, basically just said, go blank yourself. And fairly emphatically. And he said, look, if someone's going to try and blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go blank yourself. And went on to this whole thing of, people are going to see who brings this company down. And I'm going, you bought it for $44 billion. It's now worth about $5 billion. You've done that on your own. And oh, by the way, the idea of promoting Pizzagate again, really? That there's a child porn ring in the basement of a pizza parlor in DC that doesn't have a basement? Think of a better one, because there are better conspiracies out there. There are better ones to grab hold of. You've got a lot of money. You can have someone dream something up. Stick with that. But they're saying that these boycotts, if you will, like the Times, for instance, could cost him about $75 million in revenue by the end of the year. And good. Again, I still believe he bought Twitter solely to destroy it. And hey, maybe he can borrow that mission accomplished banner that George Bush used to use, because he's doing a heck of a job. Doing a heck of a job, Brownie. Quick break, right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day the National Labor Relations Board began hearings on an unfair labor practice brought by the International Mine, Mill, and Smelters. Mine Mill had been fighting the union-busting tactics at Eagle Pitcher Lead Company. The union had been organizing lead and zinc miners in the tri-state area of Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. During the Great Depression, they built the union by emphasizing safer working conditions, stressing the hazards of silicosis and tuberculosis. In their book, Deadly Dust, Silicosis and the Politics of Occupational Disease, Gerald Markowitz and David Rosmer note that one of Mine Mill's demands included the elimination of the company clinic. They argued it was used to target and fire diseased workers rather than provide a safe work environment. Mine Mill also organized in other area industries to counteract the near total power of mine owners in the region. When the union called a strike at area mines in May 1935, the area's largest producer, Eagle Pitcher Lead, moved quickly to force a lockout and establish a company union. During the hearings, the union was limited in its ability to raise health and safety issues. They did win reinstatement and back pay for workers fired during the strike, but the case brought national attention to silicosis in the tri-state area. In a letter to Francis Perkins the following year, the head of the Cherokee County Central Labor Body hoped to secure legislation to compel the companies to install ventilation systems and safety devices. He noted the average life of a miner was 7 to 10 years, with many dying in 2 or 3 years. But sadly, a federal standard on silica was still decades away. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
In one of their satirical songs, the Austin Lounge Lizards lampoon the ridiculous bigotry of some Christian factions, singing, "Jesus loves me, but he can't stand you." That could be the bellicose anthem of a quasi-religious Republican front group with a very sweet-sounding name, Moms for Liberty. Far from sweet, however, these moms are funded by rich Republicans to be ground troops in the party's culture wars. Essentially, an anti-liberty campaign against people, books, teachers, and ideas they don't like. In the last few years, squads of these moms have turned into political hate groups, persecuting small-town school board members by baselessly accusing them of conspiring to indoctrinate children with pornography, hatred of white people, and liberal thinking. Having stirred up dust devils of division and fear, the momsters ran candidates in local board elections this fall, hoping to take over public schools. But they miscalculated on an essential political reality. Most Americans are not right-wingers, bigots, or Christian nationalists. The group had counted on surprising voters in what are usually low-visibility, low-turnout races. But the extremists were the ones surprised by an aggressive voter pushback against their scheme. Indeed, various surveys show that the GOP's mom wing lost about 80% of its races across the country, even in major swing states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. For example, in the very conservative school district of Penridge, Pennsylvania, 5 far-right Republican incumbents were up for re-election. All 5 were swept out, turning the Penridge School Board blue for the first time in years. This is Jim Hightower saying, to help push back against right-wing politicizers of your school district, contact campaignsharedfuture.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So my congressman, Scott Pardon Me Perry, chair of the House Freedom Caucus, evidently he has come out and said that he's in favor of supporting a $1.59 trillion top-line spending limit. And if I'm not mistaken, that is the level that was agreed to by former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And Joe Biden. So it seems that the rebellion, the revolution, whatever went on in the House for the last couple of weeks that ousted McCarthy and caused a bunch of chaos and made the Republicans look, as ununified as possible, turns out, we're going to surrender anyway. Oh, the fun. Here to share some thoughts on that and all of the crazy, fun, and wonderful things going on in our House of Representatives. I've asked our good friend Joe Walsh to come talk with us. Joe's a former congressman from Illinois, 2020 presidential candidate, and host of the fabulous White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. You get that wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Joe, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick Smith, I love you, brother.
I appreciate that. What do you make of this? With Scott Pardon Me Perry, hopefully soon to be my former congressman, but him saying, we'll take what they got before.
Democrats will take over the House in January of 2025, Rick, and to a large degree because of what Matt Gaetz did. You think about the last 3 to 4 months, they got rid of McCarthy, They brought in a new speaker after a long time who pretty much is advancing everything McCarthy advanced. It was a personal vendetta by Matt Gaetz.
Yep.
Now, McCarthy gave him that gun with which to use. Matt Gaetz used it, and it really messed up the House Republicans.
And good. But now you've got this new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who I am not thrilled with. I actually fear him much more than McCarthy or virtually anybody else because he seems like a reasonable guy. He seems like a pleasant guy. But when you dig down, I fear theocrat. I fear lots of that stuff. But he's come out keeping to the Republican line that the impeachments of Donald Trump were brazenly political and meritless. But what they're doing for Joe Biden is just the opposite because, and this is the laughable part, the Republican Party stands for the rule of law, Joe. Stands on the rule of law.
So I said this today, Rick. Mike Johnson, the new speaker, doesn't miss an opportunity to tell the world what a Christian he is, that he is a Christian. When Mike Johnson said that today about Donald Trump was impeached unfairly and we're only going after Biden for the facts and the Republican Party is the party of the rule of law, Rick Smith, I'm telling you, Mike Johnson knew he wasn't telling the truth. He knew he was lying.
Isn't there a thou shall not in there somewhere?
I know you and I are having fun with this, but I'm a Christian guy. I don't say that much, but he knew he was lying, and yet he's a faithful Christian. I don't know how you reconcile that.
Is it possible that he just truly believes it to his, he holds it sincerely. So therefore, no. It's not a thou shall not.
Some do. Some of the Republicans do believe that crap, Rick. I know people near Mike Johnson. He doesn't. He's saying it for Trump's benefit.
Yeah.
He does not believe it.
Now, I want them to impeach Biden. I want them to go down this path. And look, I look at former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who said, this is a bad idea. Probably shouldn't do this because it's going to go nowhere in the Senate and it's going to be a political disaster. And that's exactly what I think it should be. I love the fact that Hunter Biden has come out and said, look, I'll be more than happy to come testify in an open hearing.
Hey, you and I talked about this before Republicans took over. They promised that if we put them in power, it would be 2 years of investigations, impeachment, and chaos. They've delivered. Now, the crazy thing is, Kevin McCarthy was going to give them impeachment. He just said, don't shut down the government. Let's take care of that business. We'll throw the red meat impeachment at everybody at their base. Matt Gaetz really screwed that up.
Yeah.
Republicans really hurt themselves this fall, big time.
No, look, if they played their cards right, they could have really done some damage to Biden. But, the more that they try and, like yesterday, for instance, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because I remember them saying, we're going to be transparent and, we're going to bring them in and we're going to basically flog these people in open court. And then to have the entire right-wing media structure go, I can't believe that he wants to do this and it should be behind closed doors. We don't want to see any of that. I mean, it was really crazy to me on how the right wing was all on the same message of promoting a closed door hearing. And I'm going, I thought media people wanted things out in public. I thought you wanted that so you could take the video and use it however the heck you wanted. What happened?
He called their bluff, man.
Yes.
Hey, brother, Hunter Biden called their bluff. I'm no fan of Hunter Biden.
No, I don't have any opinion of him.
Well, I do.
I don't know the man. If he's done some wrong things, he should be held accountable. There's no question about that. But I don't know the man to say one thing or another.
No, but you and I know enough that, like Jared Kushner and plenty of other people, all Hunter Biden has done is use the Biden name to enrich himself, especially from foreign sources. That's BS. It's wrong. But Hunter Biden's not the president of the United States.
Right.
They don't have the goods on Joe Biden. And Hunter Biden yesterday saying, okay, I'll come. I'll testify under oath in public, sunshine, all of it. They panicked. He called their bluff. They don't have the goods on Joe Biden, so they can't put Hunter Biden in public.
And I find it interesting that every once in a while you'll see like Maria Bartiromo ask a question, and a congresswoman will have to go, well, right now, no. We don't really have anything, but if we go on this fishing expedition, we might find something.
Oh my God, Rick! I was thinking about her today, Marie Bartiromo. 8, 9, 10 years ago, when I was in Congress, I'd go on her show a lot, and we'd talk about tax policy and and economic policy and healthcare policy. Look at how she, like so many on the right in the media, have just fallen down this Trump conspiracy rabbit hole. She is a Looney Tune now. I mean, a Looney Tune.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the water or if it's in the paycheck.
It's in the paycheck.
Okay.
If you don't do that, you end up like me, and you're no longer on Fox News. It's in the paycheck.
Yeah, it's in the paycheck. You brought up healthcare, and I'm sure you've noticed. Trump went on a 24-hour whatever that was on Truth Social, and one of those things was doubling down on we're gonna repeal Obamacare. And again, you've got to throw that out, the red meat out to the base. And I get this. It's about lathering them up. But the fact that he's going to claim that he has a much better healthcare solution, you had 4 years, buddy.
That ship sailed. He doesn't understand healthcare policy. That's what's funny, Rick. That red meat is no longer even red meat for the Republican Party base. I mean, I've got real problems still with Obamacare. Our healthcare policy in this country is all mucked up, but the Republican Party base is no longer fired up about repealing Obamacare. That came out of left field, made no sense.
Yeah, but look, he's in trouble. It's like I say all the time. A drowning man is gonna grab an anchor.
Wait. What do you mean he's in trouble? He's going to be the nominee.
Oh no, he's going to be no question. He's going to be the nominee. But I don't know if you've been noticing all the things that I don't know if you've noticed his calendar is very full, and the possibilities of him losing lots of money and potentially getting an orange jumpsuit. I got to think that weighs on the guy.
I don't because hey Rick, he's not like you and me. He's got a magic, his kryptonite, his secret sauce is he has no shame. None of this weighs on him. I mean it. None of it does. He doesn't care. He doesn't believe he's done wrong. He's not a normal human being in that regard. And all of his legal issues are really his campaign.
Yeah.
And it's bonding people to him.
I still think it's doing so, because I look at these rants that he goes on. These are the rants of an unhinged person, I think. But here's the thing. He vowed. What was it? 11 o'clock at night. He said the government should come down on MSNBC, make them pay. And then he said when he becomes president, if he becomes president, he's going to investigate Comcast. Go after Comcast.
Rick, wasn't he an unhinged SOB 4 years ago?
Truth. Way
before all of this legal crap.
Yeah.
It's now, to your point though, he's 78 years old, and he's kind of losing his marbles a little bit.
No, I've been watching some of the speeches, and he does. He's showing the age. So
sloppy.
That brings us to the election then. I mean, next year, I have this great fear that Trump is elected in 2024. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But I just have this great fear that, with all of the division that you're seeing coming out of the Middle East, all of the stuff, I got fears.
You should.
I got fears.
And God love you. And I wish everybody left of center across the spectrum, I wish they were afraid. And I wish they understood how easily he could be reelected. I think right now, Rick, he's better than a 50-50 chance of being reelected. I don't think Democrats understand that. On top of this, and you and I may disagree on the Middle East, I'm hugely pro-Israel. I love the fact that Biden's been standing by Israel. This issue is hurting him with his Democratic coalition.
Oh, it's killing him.
And I'm telling you, you know that better than I do. This is a issue that divides his coalition. That's never good.
No, it's not good. And I want to know who's funding this whole pro-Palestine movement. Look, I think the things that are going on there are horrible on all sides of the equation. But the a-hole in this equation is Hamas, and I don't know why we're not looking at them. Look, I don't want Palestinian children killed. I don't want Israeli children killed. But when you've got a group saying, until the end of time, we're going to continue this, I don't know how you can support that in any way, shape, or form.
So most Americans are pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian people, anti-Hamas. The problem is when you look at most Democrats, they're pro-Palestinian people, they're indifferent or antagonistic toward Israel, and they don't have the guts to call out Hamas. And we see this in these protests all over the country, Rick. This is hurting Biden.
No, it is, absolutely. And I thought it was disgraceful, and I said it yesterday, because I've stayed away from this issue for the most part, but I thought it was absolutely disgraceful that they, I'm sure you know where I'm going.
I know what you're going to say. Say it.
The fact that they protested at Rosalind Carter's funeral. I find, the fact that Westboro Baptist Church and those cretins were trending, and I don't even think they were there, but that to me was just pale too far, especially the Carters, who have always been supportive. That it just shows an ignorance.
Rick, tonight they're protesting and getting violent and attacking New York City cops at the damn Christmas tree lighting in Rockefeller Plaza. I mean, they are not winning hearts and minds, and this is not making Democrats look good.
So here's the thing, and I'm glad you said that, because this is where there's a part of me that goes, when the extreme right and the extreme left are to their they do eventually come together. I want to know who's funding this. That's what I keep coming back to, and for what aims. How did this explode like this? Because this doesn't just happen organically. I mean, there's got to be some organizing that went behind this and some moneyed interests.
I actually hadn't thought of that, Rick. Maybe, but to counter that, I'll say October 7th changed everything. It's the closest I've seen to 9/11. It's consumed our news. It's consumed me. I think a lot of this is organic on both sides. It was a really big thing, but I hadn't thought about who's behind it financially.
Yeah, again, I see these groups that this stuff pop up. I immediately go to, where's the money coming from? Follow again, to whose benefit, and follow the money.
Look, one other point, Rick. Nobody hits my former party harder than I do. It's become an authoritarian embracing cult. But wake up, the Democrats have a problem. On their far left, there is huge anti-Semitism on their far left, and there is huge hatred toward Israel. This is not where most Americans are. This is going to, again, hurt Democratic candidates next year.
Now, again, this is why I fear that Trump will be reelected, and all of the things that I think Biden has done well, all of the things on the labor front, all of the things on the investments, I fear Trump just wipes all that stuff out, and we end up in a worse off space. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with the former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh, host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. You can find that wherever you find your favorite podcasts. One of my favorites out there. I got to go back to the Trump campaign. Because I think it was Vivek Ramaswamy's guy just left the campaign with him and headed over to Trump. You now see the Home Depot billionaire saying that he's likely to fund Trump. It seems like, any of the resistance that you may have been a part of, not working.
Gone. And to me, Rick, this has been the biggest non-story of the past year and a half. This has never been a race. So many people have wanted to make the Republican race for the nomination a race, and it's not. And you and I talked about at the beginning, nobody who got into this race really was ever trying to beat Trump. They were always just trying to be the alternative in case Trump had a heart attack or ended up in jail. It's never been a race. He owns the party.
But here's the thing. You said there a second ago, if he ends up in jail, that they were running. This Home Depot billionaire, so it doesn't matter if he gets convicted. It doesn't matter if he's convicted of any crimes, still going to fund him.
Well, I agree with that. If Trump's convicted, he's still the man. But Rick, and this won't happen before the election, if he's put behind bars, then I think only that might impact him. But no, a conviction won't hurt him because, Rick, he'll just appeal it anyways.
Yeah. No, he's not. Anybody who thinks he's going to be in pinstripes and be a guest of the state by election time.
No.
I got bridges. I got bridges.
And Rick, and again, I'll tell you, and I'm so glad you said that you're afraid. You've got a fear that he's going to get reelected. Damn it, I don't think most Democrats and people in the middle get that yet. Biden is hugely unpopular. I don't think it's fair. I think a lot of it, Rick, is his fault because he can no longer use the bully pulpit and communicate.
No, he can't deliver the punchline. No, and I've said that. I've said that for a very long time. He can't use the punchline. He can't deliver the line, and that's. I love the policies. I love the guy. Just can't deliver the punchline. But here you talked about fear, and I swear I want to wrap this up. Look, the fact that Trump is running on a campaign of retribution, on a campaign of payback, talking about investigating Comcast because he doesn't like what MSNBC says. As someone who sits in a chair like I do and does the work that you do, this to me is troublesome. That you and I, well, we could be roomies in a cell together.
He's going to go after his enemies. He's going to use the government to go after his enemies. That is anathema to America. But Rick, the sad thing is one of our two major political parties has become an authoritarian embracing cult.
Yeah.
They want this. That's the scarier thing. We've only got two parties. One of our parties has given up on democracy. They want a freaking dictator to be president.
And not even a benevolent one. But Joe, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff. I look forward to talking to you again real soon. Thanks so much, man.
I love you, Rick Smith. I love you.
All right. Joe Walsh, host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. Make sure you check that out. Gonna take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2012. That was the day that more than 100 fast food workers in New York City walked off the job. They held a one-day strike for better wages and the right to form a union. It was the biggest fast food workers' strike up until that time. The movement soon grew to be much, much bigger. Their demand was simple and memorable: a $15 an hour minimum wage. The slogan became the Fight for 15 and a union. The campaign found an ally in SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. By August of 2013, the movement held a national strike against low pay day of action. Fast food workers and their supporters held demonstrations in 60 cities. Today, the movement has spread to 300 cities and beyond the United States. While protesters have gathered at many fast food chains, McDonald's has become a focus of the campaign. Protesters have held annual one-day demonstrations at McDonald's headquarters just outside of Chicago. The campaign has seen victories. Both New York and California have passed a $15 an hour minimum wage law. So has the city of Seattle. Although it's a national and even international movement, it is also a grassroots effort. In each city, different local groups are involved. In Kansas City, fast food women workers have formed the Fannie Lou Hamer Women's Committee. They named their group after the civil rights champion. They take inspiration from her famous quote that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. For many in the Fight for 15 movement, this sums up their involvement. It is a movement for the respect and dignity of workers and the right to earn a living wage. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I agree with Joe Walsh. And I said this from the beginning, why we never paid any attention to the Republican debates, because they were never gonna, you're not gonna dethrone Trump, and I didn't think it was possible, and I don't think I wanted it. I think that we as a country, the only way we're going to get through this is if he's defeated soundly at the ballot box. But here again, the sad reality is things aren't looking great. And you've got a lot of groups and a lot of moneyed interests now falling into line. And I look at this Home Depot co-founder, Republican mega donor Bernie Marcus, who said, "Look, I'm gonna give Trump money. Yeah, even if he's convicted, because he says that Trump's a fixer, and it would be beneficial to the U.S. economy." When he says U.S. economy, he means him. It'd be beneficial to him, like the tax bill. And this comes back to where we are as a country. The moneyed interests, they're weighing in. And they're weighing in on, we don't want Biden. The reason Biden's not all that popular is because people don't know what he's done. And Joe's right, he has not, and the administration hasn't. They haven't even sent surrogates out enough. That's actually not right. They have sent surrogates out. And do you know what kind of coverage they get? Do you know what kind of platform that they have? They get a couple minutes on the evening news. They get a couple minutes here or there. There's nothing like the F channel. There's nothing like the right-wing echo chamber on the left. There's not. There is no platform to build from, to get your message out. I was having this conversation with a friend today about, Democrats are terrible at messaging. No, they're not terrible at messaging. They've got a good message. We're going to make workers' lives better. We're going to pursue policies, actual policies that are going to do good things, that are going to invest in our country, that are going to be smart and targeted, and they're going to lift people up. The problem is they don't have a microphone, a megaphone. They don't have the platform to say, hey, look at what we're doing. Because they never built it. The left never invested in it. The right, really smart, and invested in enormous platforms that their people get to come and spew nonsense and lies and narrative constantly. Focus group tested, think tank approved. This is what they do, and they do it masterfully, better than anyone. Reality, Republicans shouldn't even be a party at this moment. They're that bad. Their policies have been that horribly destructive for working people. And yet, somehow, through decades of repetition, through decades of time and repetition, what's happened? It's almost like Stockholm Syndrome for working people. Because now you're buying it. It's scary stuff. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
We must reverse course.
UN Secretary General warns world is far off track to avoid catastrophic warming. Annual UN climate conference COP28 gets underway in oil-rich Dubai. Plus, International Energy Agency warns fossil fuel industry faces a reckoning.
All of those reckonings and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
We're simply inflating the lifeboats while breaking the horse.
Breaking the horse?
Oars. He was talking about oars, lifeboat, oars.
Well, at least we're not breaking the horse. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, no wonder they never get anything done at these climate conferences. Nobody can understand what the UN Secretary General is actually saying.
Well, not true. Most people understand.
Sure. Well, we're back. What do you got for us today?
Well, first, while we were out, a global temperature milestone. On Friday, November 17, for the first time since record-keeping began in the mid-1800s, the planet's average air temperature hit 2 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial levels.
Uh-oh.
That's according to Europe's climate service. It's an indicator of just how quickly the planet is warming. But climate scientists say we have not passed the 2 degrees Celsius target in the Paris Climate Agreement, which is defined by staying above 2 degrees Celsius for many years on end.
So we went above 2 degrees, but just for a day, so there's still time to roll it all back.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Currently, humanity's use of fossil fuels has warmed the planet 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. But that is little comfort. The United Nations 2023 Emissions Gap Report covers the gap between countries' pledges to cut their fossil fuel emissions versus what's actually required to meet the Paris targets. If every country achieves their targets, the planet is on track to heat up by nearly 3 degrees Celsius by the end of this century.
That's if they meet the targets?
Yes.
Oh.
Scientists say warming on that scale would push planetary systems past a number of catastrophic tipping points, like the collapse of polar ice sheets and the potential shutdown of vital ocean currents.
I'm starting to think we're in big, big trouble.
A different report from the International Cryosphere Climate Initiative warns that global warming of 2 degrees Celsius would trigger catastrophic ice loss with, quote, extensive, long-term, and essentially irreversible melting of Earth's ice sheets and glaciers, and would acidify the polar oceans.
Who's that from?
The International Cryosphere Climate Initiative.
Emphasis on cry.
So it matters that the United Nations Climate Change Conference begins in Dubai this week. Called COP28 for short, the massive conference of parties will hammer out key mechanisms for implementing the Paris Climate Agreement. COP28 is already one of the most controversial climate summits because it's hosted by the United Arab Emirates and the president of its state oil company. He has said that reducing fossil fuels is, quote, inevitable, but on Monday, the BBC revealed leaked internal documents showing the UAE plans to use the climate conference to privately pitch new oil and gas developments to foreign governments.
Who would have thought holding a climate conference in a petrostate would have such results?
It's expected to be a contentious conference. Multiple countries want clear language calling for a phase out of fossil fuels versus the fossil fuel industry's push for a phase down, accompanied by costly carbon capture of their climate warming emissions.
Which doesn't work.
Yeah, critics say that would allow the oil and gas industry to continue polluting indefinitely. And a new international agency report warned the fossil fuel industry to drop carbon capture technology as, quote, an illusion that will require inconceivable amounts of energy. The report found the oil and gas industry invests only 1% of its capital in clean energy, despite $3 trillion in average annual revenue. The IEA says there are only two options left for oil and gas companies: transition or disappear. Other goals at the conference include reaching an agreement on implementation of the Loss and Damage Fund, in which rich countries, primarily responsible for causing the climate crisis, provide funding and assistance to developing countries already bearing the brunt of extreme weather disasters. Also, reaching an agreement to triple global renewable electricity capacity by 2030. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said leaders at COP28 must, quote, plot a course for ending fossil fuels with a time limit compatible with the Paris Agreement.
The emissions gap is more like an emissions canyon, a canyon littered with broken promises, broken lives, and broken records. Leaders must drastically up their game now with record ambition, record action, and record emissions reductions. Leaders can kick the can any further. We are out of road.
Out of road, out of time, out of luck.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I find it interesting that during Donald Trump's late night rants and early morning rants over on the truth thing, which I still find hysterical, that a pack of lies is being framed as truth. But Donald Trump went on this rant about how he's going to go after Comcast and how they've opened Pandora's box. But the other gem was he's accepted the support of a Black Lives Matter leader, and I find it interesting considering all of the assaults and all of the verbal attacks that he's made over the years. But he's making a play, saying that he has done more for Black people than any president since Lincoln. Yeah. And here to share some thoughts on where we are as a country and where we need to heal, especially from a guy who says we're all vermin. I've asked Michael Zog to come talk with us. Michael is the author of Class, Race, and Gender, Challenging the Injuries and Divisions of Capitalism. We'll get links out on social media how you can pick this up. Michael, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thanks for having me.
So we've been playing this sad, destructive game for a long time of divide and conquer. And I've said many times on this program that the wealth class has masterfully figured out how to pit us against each other, white, black, male, female, gay, straight, you figure it out. They've done it very well. And we keep falling for it. How do we begin to heal those divides, heal those fissures? How do we begin to come back together and move in a more positive direction?
Well, I think there are two pieces to that. One is to deepen our understanding of where these divisions have come from. And the second is to get involved in actual social movements that challenge those divisions and challenge those injuries. And in the course of that struggle, we learn who are our friends and who are our enemies. And we find that we have more in common across the divisions that have been given to us. We have more in common across those divisions than we really have in common with the corporate elite and with the capitalist class in this country that created those divisions.
Now, the division that you're talking about is a class war. That is if we're getting what you're saying.
What I think is the actual division that is driving the injuries and the problems and the injustices that we're all struggling against. We have all these movements. The Black Lives Matter movement, the Women's Liberation Movement, Me Too, gay liberation, and the environmental stuff, all these things, movement against privatization, the labor movement, all the upsurges and the strikes that we're seeing now, all those things are directed at the corporate elite and the capitalist domination of the country and of the society.
So when I say I want to reunite the country, and I believe how we reunite this country is to reunionize it, would you agree with that?
Well, the unionization would be a very, very important part of uniting the country, absolutely, because when workers get together and have unions, they have strength, they have power, they have capacity to challenge the employers, not only at work, but in the society in general over social policy. And the same people who are trying to take votes away from black people are the same people who want to have right to work laws and take the right of workers to organize unions away. So these things sort of go hand in hand in the arsenal of the corporate elite and the ruling class in this country, and the resistance to it ought to go hand in hand in white labor, black labor, everybody together, not only at work and not only in the struggle with the employer, but to deal with all the divisions and all the injustices that the corporate elite puts down on all of us.
I say all the time, and I'm glad you talk about the Powell memo and that blueprint that I got to tell you the right has masterfully used over the years. You look at the the massive echo chamber that they've built with their media structure, that they can focus group test and think tank approve a particular issue, and just continue through time and repetition to change hearts and minds, where the left really never competed in those spaces.
Well, we do compete in those spaces, but we don't compete with very many resources and with much experience, actually. I mean, your program is part of what we do to challenge that. It's not like we should ignore the things that you're doing and that Democracy Now! Does, and that other broadcasters and other journalists are trying to do in their own spaces. It's just, we're up against a very formidable foe. And the way in which we get the word out is through struggle, is through the actual, organization of people in the street and in their workplaces and in their communities to battle the injustices that we all face. And we should do that together. And what this book is about is trying to trace back into the way the economy and the society is organized at its core as a capitalist society, how that basic structure then gives rise to these challenges all across human experience.
Are we a capitalist country? I mean, the truth of the matter is we socialize, corporate losses, and we have cutthroat capitalism for working people, but are we truly a capitalist country?
We're a capitalist country in the sense that it's the capitalist class that runs it. Let's start with that. And there's a great interest now after Bernie Sanders campaigns about socialism and democratic socialism, which is a way of trying to say working people should run the show instead of capitalists. And that's the challenge, is how do you develop a political operation that brings working people, and by working people, I mean not just white men, which is often the way in which the working class is characterized. The working class is black, it's women, it's men, it's white, it's Asian, it's Native American, it's all kinds of people. And it's one working class, which does have divisions in it. Let's not forget, if we talk about the racial divisions, we had slavery in this country, everybody knows that. But what we had was racial slavery. And, that racial element of slavery was designed to divide working people, white from black. And we're still living with that legacy, and we need to overcome it, both by understanding its origins and how destructive it is for white people, as well as, of course, for black people, and also to combat it not just with understanding, but with social movements that bring together white and black people and white and black labor to confront the power of capital and work and all across the society.
It's interesting you bring that up because, a couple of years ago, we did a civil rights tour, labor's involvement in the civil rights movement. And we went to a plantation in North Carolina, and the woman gave us a great tour and said, here, this is the quarters of the slaves. And oh, by the way, on the other side of the fence is where the white people lived, who had it much worse off. They were food insecure. They lived in, tattered, basically, dwellings. But they seemed to think that they were still better than the slaves because, well, they weren't slaves. And they used that division to keep both sides pitted against each other so that the owners, the masters, could exploit both of them. And, the woman, what she was trying to say is not that the slaves had it good, is that the division made them both worse off. And I think that was an important point.
Well, it is. And we see the legacy of that still today, because if you look at where the legacy and the implementation of racist policies are the greatest in the United States, in Mississippi or South Carolina or North Carolina, what you'll see there is not only are black people in the worst condition, but white people are also in the worst condition. That's where white wages are the lowest. That's where union density is the lowest. That's where life expectancy for white people is lowest. Those things go hand in hand. The suppression of black people and the division of the working class through that racial slavery and its legacy also has led to increased power for the same ruling class that wants to press down all workers, whether they're white, black, or Asian, or whoever they are. And that is where we see the legacy of that racial slavery acting to the disadvantage of white people. It's not that white people are getting so much out of it. White people are being pushed down in the living standards and in the conditions of life in areas especially where racial supremacy, white supremacy is the strongest.
You listen to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Michael Zweig. He is the author of Class, Race, and Gender, Challenging the Injuries and Divisions of Capitalism. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at this. Highly recommend it. Now, again, I go back to this idea of class war and working class, because I don't use the term middle class. I say I'm a working class guy. I may live in middle class neighborhoods, but I'm a working class guy. I think there is a distinct difference, and I think we as a country, as working people, I think we need to reclaim that identity. I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, it depends how you ask the question in a survey, how people identify. If you say, are you upper class, middle class, or lower class, almost everybody says middle class. But if you put working class into the mix, are you upper class, middle class, working class, lower class? About 35 or 40% of the population will say that they're working class people. And so that's a start. And the data that I've analyzed from the U.S. Department of Labor by looking at occupation to get a handle on what class people are in, I would say something like 62% of the labor force in the United States are working class people. We normally think of that in terms of sort of lunch bucket folks walking into factory gates. But the working class is not just factory workers. It's not just industrial workers. It's also home healthcare workers, people who are working in call centers, people who are security guards, people who are emergency medical technicians. All these people, and you add it all up, and it's 62% of the labor force. Now, there is, to me, I think it is also important to understand that class is not a question of income, it's a question of power. So if the working class are people with relatively little power, there's another class of people who have more power, and that's the capitalist class. And the middle class is what's in between the capitalist class and the working class. I think that middle class, by my calculations, is around 35 or 36% of the population in the United States. And those are small business owners. They're people who are in managerial and supervisory positions in business, and they're professional people, doctors, lawyers, university professors, that kind of thing, accountants. Those are the professional and other segments of the middle class. But by no means is this a middle-class society. This is a society where the overwhelming majority of the population is working class. And again, that's not just white people. That's actually white men are the minority in the working class in this country. If you put the women in and people of color, you have a very mixed race, mixed gender class of people who share in common their subordination to the direction and the power of their employers and capital.
So with all of these divisions and all this stuff going on, what is the way forward? As I said, I think the labor movement is where we organize workplaces. I've talked about issues over the years that have popped up in the workplace that because we had a union in place, we were able to solve these issues and get resolution. Do you have hope? Do you see a way forward? Are you encouraged by the thing you're seeing? What do you think?
Well, I think that there are very interesting upsurges in the labor movement today. We see it in the auto workers, the UAW, the strike. We see it in the Teamsters that backed off the UPS. We see it in the SAG-AFTRA and the writers. We see it in the Starbucks workers. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I think that the strength and the importance of working class organization goes beyond the workplace and beyond union activity at work in a collective bargaining agreement. Workers also live in communities. Workers also live in the society as a whole. Overall, they go into voting booths. So the working class and unions in the labor movement has to pay attention to the whole range of experience of working people, and that means that the labor movement needs to pay attention to voting rights. The labor movement needs to pay attention to what's going on in the schools and what kind of education their kids are getting, and the success of teachers and the needs of teachers to have a decent standard of living. the working class has to pay attention in all of its organizational forms to all of the conditions of life that working people experience.
No, I agree with you.
The labor movement is central to that, but it isn't the only thing.
Yeah, but I always say that, look, empowered workers make empowered citizens. If you have people who have the wealth to be able to take a day off to participate, that's a better scenario, and that's kind of where I view things.
Well, that's true, and I think that it's part of the reason why it's difficult to mobilize people to get into activity, into volunteer. I mean, even just ordinary volunteering. I'm for over 30 years of volunteering in the fire department where I live. Well, that volunteer fire department have a hell of a time getting young people to volunteer because they're all working 2 or 3 jobs, because they have other responsibilities, and because the training takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So the whole question of working people having the capacity and winning the capacity to secure their own rights and to fight for those rights, that's all part of what we need to do. And again, that's not just at work, that's throughout the experience of working people.
Michael Zweig, I appreciate you taking some time for us. The book, Class, Race, and Gender, Challenging the Injuries and Divisions of Capitalism. Highly suggest it. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at this. Michael, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing, and I wish you success with what your programming turns into.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. Back with your thoughts after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Again, the book, Class, Race, and Gender, written by Michael Zweig. Challenging the Injuries and Divisions of Capitalism. Well worth the read. Let's quick go to the phones. We got Chad in Chicago on line 1. Chad, how you doing today?
Rick, good to talk to you again.
You as well.
You actually you actually made me laugh out loud when you went on the premise that the left doesn't have a message board to get out all that Democrat talk.
Yeah, which one is it?
I mean, come on.
Tell me which one. You gonna give me CNN? You gonna give me MSNBC? Come on.
No. I'll do better than that. How about pretty much every major sporting owner, all the major sports, football, baseball, basketball, now even hockey. I mean, come on. Saying MSNBC, CBS. Come on, that's.
So all of the billionaires, the capitalist billionaires who own the sports teams, they're the messengers of the left.
Well,
come on, Chad.
Absolutely.
They're about selling tickets, and they're about selling products. Come on,
Rick. What is across every end zone and every baseline in basketball? It's all a Democrat talking point now. I mean, we used to be able to go to a sporting event and keep politics out of it. That's where the American people, the sportsmen, wanted to go. We didn't want to listen to that, or we wanted to go watch a game.
Shouldn't end racism be something we want to do as a country?
Hollywood included.
Is that not a
Hollywood?
Shouldn't that be just a human talking point? You're giving it to the Democrats. I'll flip it to the other side then. I guess you're for racism then.
No, absolutely.
Well,
absolutely not.
You seem to have a problem with ending racism being in the end zone.
No.
That's what you said. I don't want it in my face at the end zone.
Are those wait? Are those Republican talking points?
I don't care who's talking points. There's human talking points.
And that's fine. That's fine. There's no problem with that. Okay? But again, there's no problem with saying that. But it's the points of, if you want to say that the left doesn't have any platforms, I mean, it used to be Twitter, used to be Facebook, used to be, obviously MSNBC, CNN, and all that. Hollywood. I mean, come on, we got to agree with that, right, Rick?
Yeah, no, Hollywood, they're fairly liberal, yeah.
Okay, cool. We can.
They were
agree on
absolutely not anymore.
I know I'm not going to.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, man. But tell me, real quick, because I got other people I got to get to. Do you think that the left has the same kind of reach that the right has? I'm just throwing that out there. Do you think in the average everyday person's life, do you think that the left has the same access?
I would say absolutely.
Okay.
And the reason, because
I appreciate it. I got
both of them are. I
appreciate it, Chad. I got to get Jack on line too. Well, real quick. I appreciate it though. Thank you. What is it? Kurt from Akron on line too. Kurt, how are you, man? Real quick, what's on your mind, buddy?
Well, maybe I'll give you one. Is tomorrow?
Uh-oh. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. It's because I was going to few things to say, but I've real quickly taken everything. So tomorrow.
Okay, let's move on. Who do we got on 3? Alice is on line 3. Alice, what's on your mind?
I forgot to tell you what the latest right-wing conspiracy is, and you're going to love it. We're not supposed to worry about climate change because we're going to have a pole shift.
Okay. And the Earth is still flat? Is that what you're telling me?
No. We're going to have a pole shift, and that's why everything's acting wacky. And I just looked at him and said, you do realize that's like the end of everything? But, hey, whatever turns their crank. Have a good evening.
Alice is addicted to porn. I know she's not, but she's turning cranks, man, so I don't know. What a weird segment this has been so far. I got to tell you, it's just one of those things that made me go, I'm not quite sure how we got where we are, but here we are. But Chad, I appreciate the thoughts. No, look, I stand by the fact that our news is not as liberal as the right wants us to believe. And look, talk radio is 90%, conservative and ultra conservative. You look on the talk radio dial, AM radio is nothing but conservative radio and religion, and that's turned conservative. I come back to who funds this stuff. Is this in the interest of working people? Is this in the interest of making lives better? That's the frustrating point that I have. But I appreciate the thoughts, guys. Is this Jack? All right, I got a minute, Jack. What's on your mind, buddy?
Just real quickly, I still do not understand why the Democratic Party, or particularly President Biden, doesn't start something every week, half an hour, so it would take fireside chat, just pointing out the many things that he has done to help this country. And it would also, of course, clearly show there is no problem with his thinking ability.
No,
we really need something like that.
Been saying the same thing.
We absolutely need it.
I am right there with you, Jack. Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. And like I said from the beginning with the infrastructure bill, what I think they should have done, giant cardboard cutouts of Joe Biden saying, "I did that." You've got to tell people. You've got to tell them what you want to tell them. You've got to tell them what you're going to tell them. You got to tell them what you told them you wanted to tell them, and then you got to tell them what you told them again, because that's how this works. And this is what the right does masterfully. Time and repetition have moved this country crazy. We need some sanity. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2012. That was the day that more than 100 fast food workers in New York City walked off the job. They held a one-day strike for better wages and the right to form a union. It was the biggest fast food workers' strike up until that time. The movement soon grew to be much, much bigger. Their demand was simple and memorable: a $15 an hour minimum wage. The slogan became the Fight for 15 and a union. The campaign found an ally in SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. By August of 2013, the movement held a national strike against low pay day of action. Fast food workers and their supporters held demonstrations in 60 cities. Today, the movement has spread to 300 cities and beyond the United States. While protesters have gathered at many fast food chains, McDonald's has become a focus of the campaign. Protesters have held annual one-day demonstrations at McDonald's headquarters just outside of Chicago. The campaign has seen victories. Both New York and California have passed a $15 an hour minimum wage law. So has the city of Seattle. Although it's a national and even international movement, it is also a grassroots effort. In each city, different local groups are involved. In Kansas City, fast food women workers have formed the Fannie Lou Hamer Women's Committee. They named their group after the civil rights champion. They take inspiration from her famous quote that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. For many in the Fight for 15 movement, this sums up their involvement. It is a movement for the respect and dignity of workers and the right to earn a living wage. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
In one of their satirical songs, the Austin Lounge Lizards lampoon the ridiculous bigotry of some Christian factions, singing, "Jesus loves me, but he can't stand you." That could be the bellicose anthem of a quasi-religious Republican front group with a very sweet-sounding name, Moms for Liberty. Far from sweet, however, these moms are funded by rich Republicans to be ground troops in the party's culture wars. Essentially, an anti-liberty campaign against people, books, teachers, and ideas they don't like. In the last few years, squads of these moms have turned into political hate groups, persecuting small-town school board members by baselessly accusing them of conspiring to indoctrinate children with pornography, hatred of white people, and liberal thinking. Having stirred up dust devils of division and fear, the momsters ran candidates in local board elections this fall, hoping to take over public schools. But they miscalculated on an essential political reality. Most Americans are not right-wingers, bigots, or Christian nationalists. The group had counted on surprising voters in what are usually low-visibility, low-turnout races. But the extremists were the ones surprised by an aggressive voter pushback against their scheme. Indeed, various surveys show that the GOP's mom wing lost about 80% of its races across the country, even in major swing states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. For example, in the very conservative school district of Penridge, Pennsylvania, 5 far-right Republican incumbents were up for re-election. All 5 were swept out, turning the Penridge School Board blue for the first time in years. This is Jim Hightower saying, to help push back against right-wing politicizers of your school district, contact campaignsharedfuture.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as we've been talking about for quite some time, smart investment, sound policy, that's how we rebuild the country. That's how we reshore manufacturing. And as I talked about the other day, there was a historic agreement out on the West Coast with a chip manufacturer who working with the building trades to ensure that the jobs created building the facility are going to be union jobs and that the jobs in the production facility part of it eventually will be union jobs. So understand, we're going to use public money. We're going to use investment from the CHIPS Act to reshore manufacturing, and that investment is going to bring good quality family-sustaining wage jobs right here to workers in this country. And I got to tell you, it's what we should be doing much, much more of. And like I said, it's a good start. And here to share some thoughts on it is Alex Van Skyke. Alex is an organizing and campaign counsel with CWA, the Communications Worker of America. Alex, thanks for taking time for us.
Absolutely, pleasure to be here, Rick.
So let's talk about this this agreement. This is this Akash Systems business. They're building a facility out. I guess is it West Oakland?
Yep, they're building in West Oakland. They're committed to providing high quality jobs with a local hire pipeline, and yeah, they're doing things right.
Now, the part that caught my attention, the historic part in this is not that we're reshoring manufacturing, and that's great. We should been doing it for years, but this is the first in this industry's labor neutrality agreement. The company's just saying, hey, look, go organize the workforce. Let's work together. Let's all move in the same direction. This is kind of, to steal a Joe Bidenism, this is kind of a big freaking deal.
Absolutely. This is a landmark agreement. As far as we know, this is this agreement with Akash Systems is the first of its kind in the semiconductor industry. It sets a standard, and it proves that this kind of labor neutrality agreement can be a win-win for everybody.
Now, walk us through what a labor neutrality agreement is. I've heard it a labor peace agreement. I've heard a bunch of things, but what exactly does that mean?
Well, basically, what it does is it creates a fair process for workers to organize if they so choose. It kind of lays out the organizing rights in advance so that, when this facility is up and running, workers can organize without being afraid of retaliation or interference. Management will be trained not to get involved, and basically the way it should be, the way it happens in a lot of the world, where bosses keep their nose out of organizing because it's up to workers whether they want to form a union. And frankly, they should have no role in the process.
So no captive audience meetings, no firings, no harassment, intimidation, no following you home, no video cameras, sharing everything, none of that stuff. Is it what I understand?
None of that stuff. Yeah, no, they have committed to not do or say anything directly or indirectly to convey that they're opposed to unionization or to prefer any particular union. They're not saying nothing. They're not doing nothing. It's up to the workers.
So, I mean, this, I had someone email me and go, they didn't do this on their own. There had to be someone pushing them. There's no such thing as a corporation that's going to do this. And we can argue whether that's true or not. But my response was, I believe a lot of this has to do with the fact that we've got Joe Biden in the White House who is pushing this kind of model. We're investing in these chips, we're investing in these manufacturing plants, and we're saying, hey, look, you've got to make sure that these are good jobs. So I'm saying if Joe Biden's not in the White House, this doesn't happen.
I think that's quite possibly true. I mean, from the perspective of the founder of the company and the CEO, he is pretty public about the fact that he believes in collective bargaining and believes that, he's going to live out his values. So that part's great and somewhat, some might say somewhat unique and fantastic. The other piece is, you've got Joe Biden saying, we want employers to be neutral about unions. We want to create union jobs. We want workers to be able to choose a union without any interference. The CEO of this company, Akash Systems, actually was just on a panel at the Labor Department yesterday with Acting Secretary Julie Su, with a VP at Microsoft and a worker from Microsoft and AFL-CIO representative. They're all talking about the business case for labor neutrality in the DOL. I mean, it's a brand new day.
No, and look, I've said, and you're obviously the legal mind here, but I've said for a very long time the National Labor Relations Act was a peace treaty. It was, people were in the streets. There was chaos in the streets. There were sit-down strikes. There were, strikes virtually all over the place. As my grandfather told the story, we were literally tearing the country apart bit by bit to fight for better wages, hours, conditions. And I got to tell you, I think we're kind of in a moment where labor militancy is rising. So it's not surprising to me that you're going to get CEOs who go, hey, you know, we just want the work to get done.
Yeah. And I think it all fits together. The politics at the national level, the upswing of worker organizing and militancy, the tight labor market, unions getting off their butts and organizing. It's a great moment, and they all kind of reinforce each other. It's hopefully the beginning of a positive cycle.
Now, CWA has been doing some really great stuff here. Just a couple of days ago, we had someone on from the organizing campaign at Wells Fargo. We're back to organizing bank workers, and I'll understand that happened in the past. This isn't new ground. We had bank worker unions in the past, but it's great to see that they're being revived and we're moving in that direction.
Absolutely. No, it's really, that's another really exciting campaign. We just filed for 2 union elections at Wells Fargo, part of a long fight to hold Wells Fargo accountable over the years, as they've done a lot of shady practices against workers and consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, even during all that, I said, look, if you had unionized workers, they wouldn't have put up with it. They wouldn't have stood by. They would have spoken up. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with Alex Van Skyke. Alex is in organizing and campaign council with CWA, the Communication Workers of America. You can check out their website, cwa-union.org. We'll get links out on social media, how you can take a look at that. But let's go back to the building of this, because right now we're just talking about conceptually where this is going to go, right? I mean, there's nothing in the ground as of right now, but I understand that this is going to be built with all union labor. I got to assume with a project labor agreement.
Yep, that was the company negotiated a project labor agreement with the Alameda County Building Trades, parallel to the negotiations with us. And another aspect of I think what's in it for companies and part of the environment right now is the workforce development angle and the encouraging of union apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs, pre-hire programs, high road programs that are working with unions of different stripes. And our industrial division, which I was working with on this agreement with the Kosh, they really have led the way with applying those sorts of programs in manufacturing. And so I think that's another piece here that is part of the equation.
No, it's an excellent point. And, it's something an argument I made to a manufacturer, locally about 12, 13 years ago. I said, he did metal fabrication. And I said, look, you should be partnering up with the Steelworkers Union because they have the skill in this and they're going to find you the skilled people that you need who have experience, and they'll actually help you do a whole bunch of things outside of HR, legislative lobbying, all kinds of stuff. Because look, it doesn't have to be always adversarial, because you do share interests, don't you? I mean, the employer and the workers do share something of a common interest, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You want them to be profitable.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly, with the Kosh, we want them to succeed. They're getting up off the ground. They're planning to hire and employ about 500 people eventually, 500 employees in Oakland, the majority of which will be production workers of one sort or another. And they're a high road employer. We're proud to partner with high road employers that are willing to commit to working with unions, not fighting their workers' efforts to organize. They're doing the right thing, and we hope they have a very successful getting the facility up and running.
Ultimately, you want this to be the model that other places go, hey, we can do this. You want this to be something that can be not just in West Oakland, but can be in Central Pennsylvania or in Chicago or in Minneapolis or any of the places that this is like a made in a box kind of thing.
Absolutely. And we hope that there'll be continued pressure, from all angles on these big semiconductor players, because historically this was, going back to the the 70s and 80s, CWA and IUE, CWA, before they were part of CWA, were all active in the semiconductor industry when it was first starting out, and it was a viciously anti-union industry. And even today, we just had these days we had a union election at Momentive, which produces inputs for the semiconductor industry, and they ran a vicious anti-union campaign. So clearly there's a history, and there's some actors who are taking the low road.
Right.
But we're really hoping with this landmark agreement and the support that we're seeing from the Biden administration that companies will get the signal that this is the way to go.
I mean, the fact that you just brought up, the vicious campaign, and we see this in so many places. This is one of those things that makes me go, we definitely need major comprehensive labor law reform. There 100%. Has to be major changes, because the pendulum has swung too far to the side of the employer. The power is too great on their side. And look, the NLRA was not an equal playing field kind of thing, but it was trying to make it a little more equal. Today, not so much.
To put my labor lawyer hat on, I would push back and say, actually, the explicit purpose of the National Labor Relations Act was to encourage unions and collective bargaining, sure. And it's so right in the statutory purposes. But what we've had is, as 75 years of judicial, right-wing legislative, employer attacks on our labor rights, and they've done everything in their power to make the National Labor Relations Board an ineffectual agency that can't actually do its job according to the statute, which is to encourage collective bargaining. And I am so thrilled that we've got an NLRB that's led by General Counsel Abruzzo, who actually was my former boss at CWA, who's fantastic and really trying to do everything that she can, in my view, to keep laser focused on what the statutory purposes of the National Labor Relations Act were, which is primarily to encourage the practice of collective bargaining. And we're making some progress. I mean, there's something we call remedial failure. It's like when the remedies associated with a set of legal rights are so feeble that the whole system starts breaking down and people can't actually, exert their rights.
No, that's where I would argue that's where we've been for a very long time.
Yeah,
because
50 years.
The penalty in a lot of these cases for illegally firing someone or doing some of the horrible things that we've talked about here on this show is the dreaded, I'll post a notice and swear not to do it again until I do it again next time.
Yeah, exactly. The most you get is some back pay, and they're prohibited from levying fines against employers for violating the law. It's ridiculous. And you're 100% right. CWA is 1,000% behind the PRO Act. We need the PRO Act. We got to make it happen, keep it on the agenda. It would be transformative. It would not just allow the NLRB to impose fines, but do a bunch of other stuff, opening up workers and unions freedom to organize more easily and use their power together without some of these roadblocks that have developed over the last 75 years.
Yeah, as I say, if we want to reunite this country, we've got to reunionize it. That's how we reunite the country. And I think, and I look at the Biden administration, and I've got to give him credit for the things that have been happening, because it's the people that he's put into position to make these decisions. And we're one election away from all those going away and going back to the, not so great days of yesteryear. But it just is what it is. But Alex, I appreciate you taking some time. Congratulations on this. This is the steal of Bidenism, a big freaking deal. And I hope we'll see more of it. But thanks so much.
All right.
Alex Van Skyke, he is the organizing and campaign counsel with CWA. Make sure you check out their union, CWA-union.org. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1832. American author Louisa May Alcott was born in Germantown, Pennsylvania. Alcott is most well known for her classic book Little Women and its 2 sequels. She also wrote a novel called Work, a story of experience. Alcott drew on her personal experiences for the novel. She herself had to go to work to support her family at an early age. She worked as a teacher, a seamstress, a governess, and a writer. In her novel, Alcott tells the story of Christy Devon, a young woman trying to support herself in spite of all the odds stacked against her. In the book, Christy makes the difficult decision to leave her family to enter the workforce. She explains to her uncle, "I am willing to work, but I want work that I can put my heart into and feel that it does me good. No matter how hard it is, I only ask for a chance to be a useful, happy woman, and I don't think that is a bad ambition." She starts with several odd jobs, and the book traces Christy's journey as she tries different work opportunities. The book ends with Christy becoming an activist, giving a new voice to working women. The novel explores issues of social justice, women's rights, and their roles beyond the family. This book also uncovers the changing nature of women's work in the new industrial era. Although it's a fictional account, the book captures the experiences of many women of that age. As Alcott wrote, Christy was one of that large class of women who, moderately endowed with talents, earnest and true-hearted, are driven by necessity, temperament, or principle out into the world to find support, happiness, and homes for themselves. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2. Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind. Email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. Couple of quick emails to get to. Jim sent one that I'm not quite sure what the story. It's a story that I find interesting, but he said, Rick, in 1968, I sat in on a conversation with my father and his friend who was moving his company to another country. My father said, Tom, why are you moving your company? People need these jobs. His response was, Leo, it's so much cheaper. Rick, this was one of the first of over 2 million companies that have left the United States and have taken millions and millions of jobs. And I agree. Look, you know, the reality is we have moved into and this has been a long process, into what's in the best interest of the handful over the best interest of the masses, over we the working people. The owners, and they sold this to us. Understand, Jim, they sold us, and I'm sure you know this. They sold us on the idea, well, you know, we're going to move those jobs, but you're going to get cheap goods. And then you won't have to do that dirty work anymore. And we went, okay. And not thinking that, hey, those are our jobs. That's how we support our families. And it's been, you know, it's been years and years and years of this. And this is sadly where we are. And this is why, again, I come back to why I think, you know, Biden and what he is doing is so important. And I wish they would say more of it. But bringing back that idea that work should be rewarded, that there should be, you know, as I say all the time, domestic consumption for domestic production for domestic consumption. Barbara sent an email, said, Rick, why don't we hear more of these incredible stories anywhere else? I'm going to miss you when you leave radio. I know you're going to TV, but it won't be the same. I wish you the best. We love you, and we're going to miss you. And I appreciate that, Barbara. Going to miss you as well. But like I said, going to do the TV show, and I'm looking forward to that. But, you know, Barbara hits on something. We don't hear a lot of these working class stories. We don't hear a lot of how important this stuff is for communities. We just don't have a media structure that cares. If it bleeds, it leads. There's no blood in this. This is a positive story. This is good stuff. Now you could say, well, you know, the business channels should cover it. Yeah, if they do cover it, it's going to be a negative. You know, those unions are going to raise the cost of labor, and that's going to be bad for the shareholders. That's what you're going to hear on the business channels. Now, this again, I go back to when I was a kid, and it's been a while. But when I was a kid, the Cleveland Press, which was the first job I ever lost because they went out of business, but they had a labor page. They had a labor reporter. A lot of newspapers in this country had labor beats, had people who they reported on what workers were doing, what unions were doing, how conditions were for working people. So you look at every newspaper in the country, they've always had a business page because we got to tell you how corporations are doing. But some balance, and that's all I've ever asked for, is some balance. I want both sides right there. And what's happened is the moneyed interest in this country, and sadly, and I've talked about this before, the reason we're leaving radio is one, there aren't any more places for us to grow to, and two, there's no funding in it. And I've been told numerous times by people who are in positions in radio that could easily add us to 100 stations, but say, look, talk radio is conservative. It's the corporate message. You would make a terrible pitchman, and it's true. I am a terrible pitchman because someone said, well, you find go get Walmart. They do a lot of ads, and I go, okay, let's talk about that pitch meeting. Hi, Mr. Walmart. I'd like you to advertise on our program. But what we talk about on the show all the time is organizing your workers to join informed unions to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions that are going to cost you more money, giving workers more rights so you can't abuse them and make them work on their breaks and through their lunches and off the clock. No, can't do that. And you can't fire them whenever you want willy-nilly for no reason. You got to have a cause. And oh, by the way, we want your corporation to pay more taxes so that the community can have better schools and roads and infrastructure and hospitals and things that you benefit from, but you should help pay for that. And oh, by the way, if that weren't enough, your owners, these 6 wealthiest people in this country, I want them taxed out of existence. But hey, advertise with us. Do you think that would go well? In fact, I don't think I'd get that whole pitch out before they threw you out. So this is the reason that you see conservative talk radio dominating, because they're all about the sale. It's all about getting you to part with your dollar and, oh, by the way, doing a little brainwashing along the way. That's why I always love the argument, there's liberal media everywhere. I got to tell you, Chad blew my mind with, the NFL and the NHL and all the sporting teams. They're bastions of liberalism. Yeah. That's going to stick with me. I got to tell you that's going to stick with me. Now, look, he's not wrong. In every stadium that I've been to, there's been across the back of the end zone and racism. I personally think that's a good thing. I didn't know that was a Democratic or liberal talking point. And if it is, I'm sure the liberals and the Democrats would say, yep, that's us. But I would hope Republicans would say that too. I would hope Republicans would go, hey, we should be ending divisions. We should be uniting. But understand, Republicans only win elections when they can divide. The wealth class can only continue to pick our pockets when they keep us divided. The owners of this country can only exploit labor as long as you're divided. That's what they understand. That's what they've known for a very long time. The old Jay Gould quote, I can pay half the working class to murder the other half. It's about the division. We talked earlier about the divisions between black and white workers. Tennessee used to hire convicts. They would deliberately arrest former slaves so that they could lease them out to break strikes of white workers. You don't think that was on purpose? We need to stop being divided. And racism is one of those divisions I would hope we all want to end. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, by all means, I want to hear it. If you miss any portion of the program, grab the podcast. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, you'll find ours. Thanks for being here. See you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working